Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Crowdfunder Sports Successful Crowdfunding with Sport Wales webinar. Today, we are going to be looking at how to crowdfund and those benefits of crowdfunding. We'll also take a look at the wonderful extra funding opportunities that we have available through our partners at Sport Wales. And we have been joined by Philip Clark, who will talk through the fund in a bit more detail. We're also really glad to have been joined by Mike Knight from Newport Cricket Club, who's going to share his experience of running not one but two recent crowdfunding campaigns, his advice from a project owner's point of view on how to do that successfully, and maybe some of those hurdles as well that you guys might end up facing, and then you can actually be kind of forewarned and know how to navigate those as well. We have allowed 60 minutes for this session. That does include a Q&A at the end as well. So please do use the chat box, which you should find on the right hand of your screen. Some of you are tapping and writing in there already, which is fabulous. Do feel free to introduce yourselves. Let us know what your club name is, your project idea, whereabouts in Wales you're joining us from. And we'll make sure to be as interactive as we can be as well in that chat box and share any of the relevant links that we're talking about today for you. This whole session is being recorded. We will send that out to you by way of a follow-up email that will include those links to resources we've discussed as well, and how to help you to take those next steps with your crowdfunding journey. If you're wondering if you will feature in that recording, you won't. We can't actually see you. So don't worry, you're not going to feature on the replay. Feel free to have a cup of tea, absorb all the wonderful content that we've got coming your way. We've got a lot to get through in the next hour, so we will get started. Just one more thing to bear in mind. If you find that you're having any issues with your internet connection, do just press the refresh button, which you should see at the top of your screen by your browser bar, and you will be directed to come back into the live room. Okay, as I say, we've got a jam-packed session, so let's get started. For some of you here today, crowdfunding as a notion of a way to actually raise money might be something that's quite new to you. What I would love to find out in the first instance is how many of you might have experience of using a crowdfunding platform. So that's any platform, whether that be ourselves or another fundraising platform. So I'm just going to put a poll into the chat box here. How many of you have actually donated to a crowdfunding project before? That might be your sports club, that could be a personal cause or a community organisation local to you. Okay. It's jumping around all over the place. I thought we had a resounding 100% yes then, but it seems to have actually swayed the other way. So we've got 20% of you are saying yes and 80% of you are saying no. Okay, that actually is really good information for me, because that means I can take it right back to the beginning and explain all there is to know about what crowdfunding is and how it could be of benefit to you. So Crowdfunder UK was set up around 10 years ago. It's a rewards-based crowdfunding platform. So crowdfunding in its kind of simplest terms is raising money from your crowd or your community and your network around you in order to make an idea or a project happen. Crowdfunder was set up as a rewards-based crowdfunding platform. And what that is we give project owners, sports clubs in this instance, the ability to offer a benefit of some kind in return for their supporters' financial contribution. And that may be things like discounted coaching sessions or sponsorship of the club, for example. It could be club merchandise when we're thinking about sports clubs specifically. It could be things that are gifted to you from the local community. A really good way to think about this is, rather than holding an in-person raffle, whereby you would go around the local town and ask different high street shops and organisations if they would gift you something that you could actually raffle off on the night, think about doing a similar process, but rather than having that raffle, you're actually listing these things onto your project page as a reward with a set price attached to it. And that way people can come along, look at your project page and claim one of those rewards. And obviously their money is going to a really good cause as well. So it's a benefit of some kind in return for a financial contribution. There are lots of benefits to crowdfunding as well that I will talk you through. I'm just going to actually take myself off this slide to make it a little bit easier for you to see. So when we talk about crowdfunding, obviously the main reason people are going to crowdfund is to raise money for their organisation, or in this case, their sports club, to make an idea or a project happen that they need the funds to do so. There are lots of added benefits that come along with running a crowdfunding campaign. Firstly, validation. It's a brilliant way to build confidence in your idea and to actually see if there is an appetite for what you're hoping to do. It's a brilliant low-risk way of testing the water to see if your club members and your community around you actually want to see that thing happen and get behind you in order to make it happen. It's a lovely way to build awareness as well. So not only about the idea and the project that you're hoping to deliver, also the club itself. Most sports clubs, if not all sports clubs, are really prominent within their local community. It might be, though, that those that don't partake in the sport don't have as much awareness as what happens within that sports club. You know, you can really push that awareness to a wider audience, and that may actually in turn help to increase membership numbers or partnerships going forward with different local organisations. It can really help you to be able to reach a wider audience by using the tools and the resources that we have for you, and by taking on board some of the lessons that we have on how to do that effectively. So reaching beyond your club members and those that already interact with you as a sports club. Now, everybody that supports your campaign will automatically become an advocate for your club. You'll build an engaged audience who are with you on the journey to actually see what happens with this wonderful project idea that you're hoping to deliver. As I say, that could lead to new members going forward. It could be that you're building meaningful connections within the community itself. So whether that is partnerships, whether that is local businesses coming on board and helping you in kind with things like materials or labour or volunteering their time to help your project get off the ground. It could be new sponsorships. There's all sorts of wonderful ways in which the community can get behind you, not just the financial raise alone. And they will go on to talk about you as well to their friends and their family and their networks. So it's a really lovely organic way of building a network and developing these advocates on behalf of the club. Taking part in sessions like this and using our online Learn platform will also teach you some really wonderful new skills. It will have you crowdfunding like a pro and being successful within your campaign. It will also give you wonderful transferable skills that you can take into all sorts of different walks of your life. That might be networking for some of you that aren't so kind of confident with doing that. It could be creating engaging content, writing about the club in a really engaging way. Digital fundraising in itself has lots of transferable skills, and we will get you all clued up with all of those. And finally, the thing that I imagine brings you all here today is that extra funding opportunity and the support that we have. So we work with over 70 national and regional extra funding partners or match funding partners, and we have over £10 million worth of money available. We're here today to talk specifically about the offering from Sport Wales. We also have different extra funding partners that we work with, and they can all be found on our website under the extra funding tab, and I'll put a link to that into the chat box in a moment. It's always a great idea to check through everybody that you have been matched with. So our computer system will match you with these funding partners based on your location, what you're raising the money for, and your organisational structure. So your setup, whether you're for-profit, not-for-profit, a charity or constituted group, for example. We always recommend that you apply for everything that you've been matched with, as long as you think it's a good fit. You don't have to choose just one. You can receive multiple pots of money. So it can be a really, really exciting opportunity and can really boost your fundraising potential. So do keep an eye out when you start putting your pages together for who you have been matched with. Okay. So in terms of sports specifically, we know that actually crowdfunding for sports clubs can work incredibly well. And there's a few reasons for that. Primarily, you have already got a really strong crowd. So you have a network that you can easily tap into. You've got your members, you've got their friends and families, you have different potentially community groups that already use your space. So that's another network right there. The key really is to think about who you have within your existing crowd and beyond, and actually tailor all of your promotion and tailor the page itself to be talking to each of these different audiences. Think about what resonates with them, and what resonates with an existing club member might be slightly different to the local community group that uses the facilities once a week. Those two narratives might be slightly different, and you need to make sure that you are thinking about each kind of strand of your audience throughout the whole campaign, when you're putting the project together and when you're promoting it, and even when you're sourcing those rewards as well. What will appeal to those different members of your audience and different members of the community? And of course, you are all by nature a competitive bunch of people, and that is really, really helpful when you're crowdfunding. Use that competitive nature to your advantage. Draw on people's skill sets as well. Get people involved that are already invested in the club by way of membership, or people that really want to see this succeed. If you've got a youth team that are really confident in front of the camera, get them doing a couple of videos for you. If you've got somebody who's a larger than life character within the community who comes and uses the club, then get them on board to do some of the promotion and networking for you. It should be a collaborative team effort. There are other things you can do, which we'll talk about a little bit later, in terms of actually really harnessing that competitive nature in order to kind of boost your crowdfunder a little bit further. And I'll go into more detail on that. Ultimately, though, you are in a prime position to really make the most of a crowdfunding campaign in order to fundraise really effectively. And we've seen all sorts of different sports do that. Everything from korfball, which I'd never heard of until they started crowdfunding a club and they came into one of our webinars, all the way through to things like inline ice skating, basketball, rugby, cricket, you name it. You can find any sport pretty much on our website that has now crowdfunded. So go and get some inspiration from others that have come before you as well. Always a really good place to start. Just to talk numbers for a moment. So our impact so far when it comes to sports clubs crowdfunding, we have distributed over £8.4 million worth of extra funding now. We've seen over 4,300 sports clubs come and crowdfund on our platform. And we've seen them be supported by over 300,000 supporters. So a huge amount of support in their local communities across the nations in order to get behind these sports clubs. And it's over now as well, £26 million worth of money has been raised by these clubs collectively, and that's always growing. So a really, really brilliant thing to be a part of. So much wealth of knowledge and inspiration already on the platform for you to take a look at to really help you to create your own successful project pages too. Now, someone that's going to talk us through the all-important extra funding match fund available from Sport Wales is the wonderful Philip Clark. Hi, Phil. Are you there?
Hi, Zoe. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Are you able to talk those attending with us today all through the A Place for Sport fund? I'll take myself off of the slide and I'll put some of those links into the chat box while you're going through it, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. So as Zoe said, I'm just going to run through a little bit about A Place for Sport scheme that we run in conjunction with Crowdfunder UK. So basically, in short, A Place for Sport in conjunction with Crowdfunder is an opportunity for community sport organisations to raise money for capital off-field works and supported by Sport Wales match funding. So those of you on the call today, you may be aware that we operate another fund at Sport Wales called the Be Active Wales Fund, which focuses primarily on-field participation in sports, so getting sport happening, sports clubs, getting equipment, coach education, all these sorts of things to help sport on-field. But A Place for Sport crowdfunder works on the premise of helping develop things off-field. So it's a really good opportunity for sports clubs to, if they want to make an impact off-field. So it could be looking at change room facilities, renovations, clubhouse renovations, improved kitchen facilities, that sort of thing, then a Place for Sport crowdfunder is a brilliant opportunity to do that. So I'm just going to run through a little bit of information on how the fund works. So as Zoe mentioned, we have a really good relationship with Crowdfunder UK, and in the first instance, if a club was interested in producing a crowdfunder page, all you need to do is go to the crowdfunder website and set up your page. And as Zoe has gone through already, the extra funding tab comes in to play, and Sport Wales is on that list. So in terms of our involvement then, what we look to do is look to match fund projects between 30% and 50% of a project's target total. The exact percentage will be determined once an application has been submitted through to us. So once the page has been set up, the extra funding tab has been clicked into, the questions have been answered, and it comes through to us at Sport Wales. We will then contact you and discuss how we move forward. And in that process, we will tell you how much you're eligible in terms of support, match funding support. So in short, the 30% match funding element is basically all dependent on the Welsh Index of Multiple Deprivation data. So if a club doesn't fall within one of the 30% most deprived areas of Wales, then they are eligible for a 30% match funding support from Sport Wales. If a club falls in that 30% of the most deprived areas of Wales, then they are eligible for a 50% match funding support pledge. So just in simple terms, if a club wanted to raise £10,000 for a new clubhouse facility, and they fell within the 50% bracket, then Sport Wales would pledge £5,000 to that project, and the club then would have to raise the remaining £5,000 through the crowdfunder page. In terms of the 30%, that would be a £3,000 pledge from Sport Wales, and then the £7,000 from the sports club. The other alternative is a 40% pledge, and that basically looks at targeting projects that are underrepresented in sport. So there could be a women's and girls project that is, it's eligible and they're fundraising, and because it's an underrepresented group in sport, we will look to pledge 40% towards that project. So again, in simple terms, a £4,000 pledge from Sport Wales to a £10,000 project. So in terms of the application itself, there's three elements that we like to see hit, or one of three elements that we like to see hit. So in short, the three priorities that a crowdfunder page must hit is either improving the off-field experience. So like I already mentioned, a new clubhouse renovation facility is going to help people be more interested in joining the club. It's going to provide a place to go back to after a game. Is going to improve the off-field experience no end. So that's one example of what we look to fund. So if a club can demonstrate that's what this project is going to do, then it's eligible for Sport Wales funding. Another one is providing economic sustainability. So if a club's project come into us and it was all around helping get that economic sustainability of the club improved, then we again look to support. So an example for that would be a club wanting to put a kitchen facility into their new clubhouse, or even a bar into their new clubhouse, with the idea of selling food on match days, drinks on match days, to then make money for the club and improve the economic sustainability moving forward. And the third strand is environmentally friendly. So if a club can demonstrate that this project is all about improving the environmentally friendliness of the club, then again, that makes it eligible for Sport Wales match funding. So in terms of the application itself, what I'd just like to touch on at this moment is pretty much as Zoe has said, the application to a Place for Sport crowdfunder for Sport Wales is the actual crowdfunder page itself. So we've on screen, you can see some really successful projects that have happened over the last 2 years with us. The first one on the left-hand side of the screen, Help FC Cameron Keep the Village Alive. Brilliant project looking to raise money for a new stand at their at their club facility. And their page was excellent because they had a really good video that described what they were looking to do as a club. They showed the state of their current stand. They showed what they would like the stand to look like moving forward. They got some really good pictures on their page to kind of demonstrate, the club ethos and the community feel around the club. And then the rewards were really, really interesting too. So as we'll allude to a little bit further down the line today, rewards are a really, really good way to entice community pledges, and they were really, really creative with how they got them on their page and got community pledges through their reward scheme. So that's a bit of a rundown really of how it all works with Sport Wales. In terms of the projects themselves, we've had some brilliant success stories. Like I just mentioned, the Kamama one on the page there. We've had some brilliant smaller scale projects as well. Mike from Newport Cricket Club is going to talk through in a moment about a particular project that he's been successful with at the club. So yeah, some really, really good projects. So however big or small they are, and if you are interested in raising money through a Place for Sport crowdfunder, then please get in touch.
Amazing. Thank you, Phil. Really, really informative there. So hopefully some really great takeaways for everybody. Are you okay to hang on towards the end of the session and we can bring you back in for a Q&A?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no problem.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We'll see you in a little bit. Okay, so a really exciting funding opportunity there. So definitely take a look at the eligibility criteria, which I've actually put a link to that into the chat box now. So do feel free to click on that one. It should open up a separate tab for you to take a look at. And we'll, of course, send that through in the follow-up email as well. We have had a question come through, which I'll cover off now. In terms of looking for more examples of successful projects that have been funded or part funded through Sport Wales, I'm so sorry, then do take a look at that the funding page. So the link that I've sent for the fund itself, at the bottom of that page, you will see all of the successful projects that have received that match funding from Sport Wales. So you can take a look at their type of rewards, how they've put that page together, maybe click through to their social media platforms and see how they've been promoting it. Do get as much inspiration as you can from those projects that have come before you. Just in terms of how that match funding works then. So as Phil mentioned, you would sign up to crowdfunder.co.uk. You'd start putting your project page together with all of your project idea. You will already have a good idea because you've gone through our Learn platform as to the planning stages, and you would have decided upon a target. So the amount that you need to raise in order to make your project happen. Ideally, that's going to be the minimum that you need to make it happen. And you can always plan to overfund. And that is what you can see here on the slide as the stretch target. And I'll explain that in a minute. Ultimately, think realistically about the amount of people that you might be able to gain those donations from and that minimum that you need to actually get this idea and this thing happening. So you'd also apply for any of those extra funds whilst your project is in draft mode before you go live. The reason that we recommend this is that it gives you time if you need to make any amendments to the page in order to fit with the criteria or any advice that you receive back from Sport Wales once you've put in the application. It also gives you something really exciting to start promoting your campaign with. It's a brilliant place to be able to launch your crowdfunding campaign and say, look, everybody, we are going to get X amount of money from Sport Wales if we manage to raise X amount of money from our community. So please get behind us. So it's a really good idea to get all your ducks in a row, as well as applying for that extra funding before you go live. So you know what your goalposts and your milestones are going to look like. So let's say you've been approved for the match fund. You then go on to launch your crowdfunding campaign. You're going to start raising money and bringing in those donations from your community, or your crowd, as we call it. You will need to reach 25% of your initial target from a required amount of supporters. And you can see in the table here what that looks like. That's all based on what your initial target is. So a required supporter is essentially an individual. So somebody who's making an individual donation. So if they make multiple donations to your crowdfunding campaign, that's awesome. We do encourage that, of course. It's incredible if they want to give more than once. However, only their first donation will be counted in those required supporter numbers. Once you hit that first milestone, you will see a pledge from Sport Wales land on your crowdfunding page. It will go into your target percentage raised. You'll have a lovely banner in your supporters tab that say that Sport Wales have supported you with X amount of money towards your campaign. You then go back out to your crowd, you shout about this wonderful news, and you bring in more donations to your page. So you keep crowdfunding until you reach 100% of your initial target. Once you've hit that 100%, you have secured all of the money that you have raised so far, including that extra funding pledge. So you have secured all of your crowdfunding efforts. Now, if you still have a bit of time left live on your campaign, you can, of course, continue to raise money, and that's what we call the stretch target. So your stretch target will be an additional figure, an additional amount of money that you're hoping to raise in order to add all of the wish list items onto your project. So it's the things that are going to really make that project sing. And that could be, let's say you're developing the clubhouse. You want to put that new bar and maybe a new kitchen in there to make sure that you can do things on game night and actually have people coming and visiting and open it up for different community organizations too. So you've raised the money to do that. Now that stretch target might be things like you're going to then go on to do the toilets as well, let's say, or you're going to be able to hold an amazing opening ceremony and you're going to do all sorts of wonderful marketing attached to that. So do think about those added additional things that you might want to include in your stretch target. Okay. Phil mentioned as well about applying for the extra funding. So when you're putting your project page together, you will have a series of different tabs to complete. Things like your basic information, letting us know about your project, filling in your project page information, which is forward facing. And then you'll also have an extra funding tab to complete too. So within this section, you need to let us know that you're okay. So allow us to actually share your project information with our funding partners so that they can obviously take a look at your page as well as your application. You also want to let us know who's likely to benefit from your project, so the different demographics within the community. Also, your potential project aims. So what are those benefits to the community going to be? It's all a tick box exercise, so fairly straightforward. Once you've done that, our system will match you with any of those extra funding partners that we think would be a good fit for you. Now, all you would need to do is in your project dashboard, which is where you can manage all aspects of your project, you would simply click Apply Now on any of the funds that you think would be a good fit for you. You'll then be taken to a short application form. It's normally around 10 to 15 minutes to complete. Definitely a lot quicker than your traditional grant funding or bid writing, for example. And as Phil mentioned, they will look at both your project page, which will be lovely detail and brilliant information about how incredible your club is and why it's so important to the community that you get this project off the ground. And then your application form, which is more of the back end side of things. So in terms of, the organization itself. Those two things combined will be what gets you that approval. A good piece of advice is whenever you're thinking about those applications for extra funding, maybe create a Word document so that you can have all your answers already written out and just copy and paste them over. You will need to do it in one sitting. You can't actually save that application and come back to it. So just to save yourself some time, make sure you have those answers to hand, and then you can copy them and paste them into any of those applications where relevant. Okay, I'm going to remove myself again for this little section. In terms of telling your story effectively, so creating a really engaging project page, there are a few hints and tips that we know work really well, and so much so that we've created a template for sports projects. When you sign up to Crowdfunder UK as a sports club, you will automatically have access to this template. Essentially, this template is prompting you to put the correct information on your page in order to engage your community. What we recommend is that you do change these headers to something which is more relevant to your particular club. So it might be where it says, who are we? You might actually decide to have the name of the club itself or the history of, or something that resonates more with you. So it doesn't look too much like it's the generic headers. Essentially, you want nice headers breaking up the information on your page. You want to let us know all of the wonderful things that you already do. as a club and for your community. And then you want to tell us all of your future plans as well. If you can include as many images and videos as possible in order to demonstrate that, that's only going to help to enhance the page and make it really eye-catching for those that are reading it. You want to be able to signpost your reader to pick out any key information, watch any short videos. We do recommend having a short video at the top of the page, maybe a minute to a minute and a half long, which you will use to actually have an overview, if you like, of who you are, why you're crowdfunding, what you're crowdfunding for, and how people can help you to achieve that. So that's going to be donating, offering a reward, or sharing it with their networks. If you follow this template and gain inspiration from those that have come before you, you stand a really good chance of having a lovely, engaging page. And remember those two narratives where you're talking to your existing club members and also those that you're hoping to bring in as new supporters and engage with those people too. Okay, we mentioned rewards right at the beginning of the session. Rewards can be everything and anything that you can think of, which will have an appeal to your community and may incentivize their giving. So that could well be things, as I mentioned, like coaching sessions. You might decide to have a community day at the club and you're going to actually have a ticket price associated with that, and people will claim a ticket on your crowdfunding page. They will come along and have access to taster sessions from the sport. You might put on some food, you might have got a bouncy castle in for the younger kids, you might have a bit of a party, community party, essentially, to showcase all of your wonderful facilities, and you might be able to then have QR codes attached to posters, for example, around the club that people can scan and give a little bit more to your page on the day. It could be that it's high street vouchers. You can see here that there's a fish and chip voucher. You've got a voucher for a local MOT, a local garage. That is really useful. So think about products and services that people are already using, and it would be really great for them to get it at a discount via your crowdfunding page, and things that are maybe an exclusive or like a VIP experience. So if you don't normally offer a particular type of coaching, maybe it's a one-on-one coaching or personal training or something like that that you don't normally offer in your day-to-day club offering, I've said offer a lot of times then why not list something like that? And actually maybe some of your club members might take up the opportunity to have a really one-on-one intense coaching session. So think about your skill set, think about what you do as a club, think about who uses your facilities already and do they have anything that they could offer, and obviously your local business community too, as well as your members and their networks. Did they have any side hustles or businesses themselves, or any skills that you could utilize by way of a reward? Another really exciting way to maximize your fundraising is to actually multiply your crowdfunder. By becoming a multiplier, that enables other people to raise money on your behalf. So you can have people setting up their own fundraisers, which will all funnel straight onto your main crowdfunding page. It's a great way to make sure you've got those supporter numbers you need for that first milestone and beyond to unlock any extra funding, and to obviously increase your ability to raise the funds that you need and hit your target. I mentioned about just how competitive you are naturally. It's a great opportunity to actually have a fundraising event. So whether that is you're going to create a match at the club and it's going to be the veterans versus the youth team, or you're going to bring in people from different members of the community and you're going to actually have a game and a match that you play, and each team is going to fundraise, or each individual in the club is going to be set a fundraising challenge. Maybe you want to incentivize that by offering a prize for the person who manages to get the most supporters or manages to raise the most amount of money, or the team that wins on that fundraising day. So think creatively, use your strengths. Being a multiplier can be a really lovely way of involving your members and your community, especially those that aren't necessarily in a position to give to you financially. So if you have youth members, for example, it's a really lovely way for them to take ownership for some of the fundraising too. So do encourage them wherever you can and include people to help you along the journey. Okay, now somebody who has recently crowdfunded is the wonderful Mike from Newport Cricket Club. Mike, are you there, please? Welcome you onto the screen. Hi, Mike.
Yeah, I am. Thanks very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much for joining us. This has been a long time in the making, hasn't it? I think I got in touch with you a while ago, but obviously that was in the thick of cricket season, I think.
Yeah, so busy time.
You have recently run this particular crowdfunding campaign, A Cut in Time. This is actually your second campaign, I believe, though, isn't it? So you're somebody who's successfully done it and come back for more. So obviously it felt as if it worked for you that first time. What was that incentive to use crowdfunding as opposed to maybe those traditional ways of raising money?
Well, we'd applied for different grants, but unfortunately, lots of the grants don't support ground machinery, and ones that do, not very much money from the grant. We felt through the Crowdfunder grant scheme we could raise a lot more money than we might do with other activities. So we did it first of all with a new roller for the previous season, and then we followed that up with an outfield mower for this year.
Amazing. And you have done really well. I mean, £17,000, over £17,500 from 97, supporters, which is great. And so £6,000 of that was actually extra funding. So that's a whopping chunk of money. The ultimate question is, have you got your new mower?
Well, it's been delivered. We haven't been able to use it yet because obviously now we're starting to get to the winter, and it's not going to be used. So we've decided, because it's new, we're going to put it in the garage and keep it pristine condition, ready for the start of next season. But yeah, it's all there, ready to go.
That's really exciting, and definitely something that I think is going to be a precious piece of equipment, I think, especially in the near future.
Yeah, it's vital for us, vital.
Did you find, obviously having run that campaign before, when you were setting this one up and kind of promoting it, did you find that you went back to a similar group of people, or how did you go about promoting this one? Was there any differences in the way that you approach things?
I think, as I said, the previous one had been very successful. So we carried on mainly with the same theme and the same people that we targeted. We'd had a lot of encouragement from parents previously. We've got a massive junior section, and we'd had a lot of encouragement from parents. And we actually went back to a few influential parents and talked to them about applying for a second Crowdfunder grant, because we didn't want to seem to be, being too pushy. And they were 100%, yeah, no, you must. So that was why we did the second grant, really. Amazing.
And I think it's something that people often shy away from. They think, okay, we've got to throw all our eggs in this one basket, and we need to, maybe there's something that does cost quite a lot of money, and they're thinking, how are we going to raise all of this from one group of people? The proof is there with what you guys have done. Maybe it would have been a bit more difficult in the first instance if you kind of said, right, we need both these bits of equipment, and they're going to be this amount in total, and it's quite a large amount of money. However, breaking things down, so anybody that's thinking about, maybe they've got capital works that they need to do in their clubhouse, as I mentioned earlier, is there a way that you could raise money for a section of that and get it underway, and then come back to that crowd in 6 months' time, 9 months' time, whatever it might be, and go again? People are very often, they're very open to being approached again if they know, especially, that you might access some of this extra funding towards making it happen. They want to see the club succeed as much as you guys do. I just think they all need a bit of a break, as do you, in between each campaign. And you guys had enough of a break, which is really, really good. Did you find in both of your campaigns, was there anything that worked really well, or anything that you found difficult that you learned from that first campaign that you were able to kind of navigate differently this second time around?
I think maybe from the difficulty point of view, the application is very straightforward. There's good support, as you've already, done this morning. Great support, online, tutorials, templates, all that is really good. Probably the most difficult thing I think for us was to match up the financial part of it. And that's understandable, really, because, when you're talking bank details and transfers of money and things like that, it's got to be spot on. That was a little bit fiddly, but, understandable in the way that the checks had to go through. But it went through, in the end without any problems. Getting the required number of donors, again, is a critical one. That can be quite challenging. There were a number of times when we got to a stage whereby we were thinking that the campaign was dropping off a little bit. We did have one person who was monitoring numbers very closely. Obviously, we needed to get a minimum 75 to achieve our extra funding. So when we got up to the 60s, we had a good start. We targeted a lot of people before the campaign to let them know what was going to happen. We'd had a lot of verbal support, so they were ready to go once it did go live. But then we got up to about 60 donors and things started to ease off a little bit. And at that time, we knew it would. We had our little purge then, whereby we put out an urgent appeal. We kept a meticulous record of people who had supported the programme. So rather than going back to everyone and saying, can you support it? We went to people then who hadn't supported it. And in the end, we exceeded our expectations, really. We needed 75. We got up to 97. So once we got that 75 and the magic number was achieved and Sport Wales put their £6,000 in, well, that was a real relief and we were quite happy. But it was such a successful program, we just kept on getting donors, and in the end we got up to 97 and 17,600.
Amazing. See, crowdfunding like a pro, Mike, now. That's all the things that we absolutely recommend people do, is having that list of potential supporters. Who have you contacted? Who's not responded? Go back and speak to them. All those things are exactly what we teach people to do in order to crowdfund successfully. So well done you for doing all of that and having such success with it.
I think the other thing that worked really well for us and probably gained us that little bit of momentum was to keep people up to date with how we were doing, because people won't necessarily go onto the website to see what the target is. Lots do, but a regular update indicating how many donors we had, the level of money that we'd received. Nearly every time we did that, we'd have an influx of donors and an extra money put into the Crowdfunder project. So that would be something else which I would say, try and keep a regular update, your membership, keep them updated with things.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, really, really important. I've tried to highlight throughout this session just how much of a collaborative exercise it is. People really do want to feel, and they enjoy feeling part of it with you, with the club, whether they're members or whether they're just somebody who lives locally, knows the wonderful work that you do. As a supporter, they really enjoy feeling on this journey with you. So actually keeping them updated might just give them, again, that little nudge to speak to their networks and say, come on, have a look at this. As I've supported it, it's really important. And they feel as if it's their support with you is important too. And I think that works really, really well. Mike, would you be able to hang on with us for the Q&A? I've got a few slides to get through and we've had some brilliant questions coming through. I want to allow enough time to be able to have that chat with you and Philip at the end. Are you okay to hang on in the background for a minute, pop your mic and your camera off, and I'll bring you back in a few slides time?
Okay.
Thank you so much. We'll see you shortly. Amazing. It's always so good to hear from people who have been there and done it. And such brilliant advice from Mike there. Take on board everything he's saying. Plan. Go back and speak to people and make sure you keep them updated as well. So in order to help you get there and have successful campaigns, just like Mike, we have some wonderful learning and support available to you. We have webinars such as this that happen regularly. We also have a weekly drop-in session where you can come along and speak to members of the crowdfunding team virtually. You're in a virtual room with other project owners as well. So there's some brilliant peer-to-peer support and peer learning. You can ask any questions that you have about your campaign or crowdfunding in general. We've got some wonderful online learning and guides that you can take part in, an online learn course that I'll share the link to in a moment, as well as some wonderful guides in order to help you along the way. Our knowledge hub is full of all sorts of wonderful articles and hints on tips on how to do every single stage of your crowdfunding campaign. When you sign up to Crowdfunder UK as a sports club, you will automatically be signposted to all of the sports resources, and you will receive tailored email advice as well, specifically for crowdfunding for sports. We have an incredible customer support team. They are a relatively small team. They are so knowledgeable, it's unbelievable. They have completely created the help center. So they are the ones behind our help articles, our troubleshooting guides, our FAQs. So do always check our help center before contacting them. The chances are the answer is there for you already. If you are still struggling, then by all means contact our customer support team and they will do their utmost to help you along the way as well. And then, of course, there's the live project dashboard that I mentioned throughout the session. You can manage every aspect of your campaign through this dashboard. You can monitor when your donations are coming in, what your activity looks like with engagement with the page. You'll also be able to apply for those all-important extra funds as well. So do make sure you are using that dashboard throughout the whole of your campaign and beyond. This is just a quick snapshot of that Learn platform. It's really, really user-friendly. Lots of short videos, key information that you're going to need in order to effectively put your page plan together. Okay, we've got a nice amount of time now in order to answer any of your questions. So if I could please invite Phil and Mike back onto the screen, I will jump into the chat box and see what questions we've had coming through. Okay, so first of all, we have had a question about examples of crowdfunders that have received extra funding. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, for all of our funds that we have available under that extra funding page on our website, at the bottom of each of those are all of the projects that have been successfully matched and have received extra funding. So look at those in terms of projects that have actually received the fund already. They are all listed there for you. Go and take a look at those. Okay, in terms of a question, kind of probably a crowdfunder one. So in terms of sports enthusiasts or athletes, how could they benefit from using the Crowdfunder sports platform? So in terms of crowdfunding, you can pretty much crowdfund for anything. If you were an individual taking part in sports and you weren't a constituted group or an organization or a charity, you could, of course, crowdfund. There's nothing to stop you doing that. However, you may not be eligible in order to access any of that extra funding. So as Phil, if you wanted to just go over again that kind of eligibility in terms of what you'd be looking for to support.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, to answer that and following on from what Zoe said, really, in terms of specific criteria, I suppose, that Sport Wales look for when we pledge extra funding. So basically, we only can fund not-for-profit organisations that deliver sport. So this could be a sports club, a charity, or a community organisation that delivers sport. And like Zoe mentioned, they have to be a constituted group. And yeah, that element of delivering sport is key, I suppose. In terms of further criteria, if you're looking to, raise funds for a specific capital works or fixed works like a new building, then we do require to see a leasehold or a freehold for that club and that particular facility. But we can kind of go into the more details of that once an application comes in.
Amazing, thank you. And I should highlight as well that we have got the direct email address. If there's any inquiries specifically about the fund, then please do just drop the guys at Sport Wales an email and they'll be able to actually support you and support your inquiry when it comes to exact eligibility for your particular club. In terms of sports themselves, is there any criteria in terms of what sports might be supported? The question here is, how does Crowdfunder Sports ensure that funds... Oh no. There was one about particular sports, and I'm sure you'll be able to shed some light on that one, Bill.
No worries, I noticed that question as well. So yeah, it's a really good question actually. So basically, it's not prescribed to certain sports. This particular fund, we fund all sports, but we do have what's called a recognised sports list on the Sport Wales website. So if there are any sort of questions about, is this a sport? Is it not a sport? Does it come under the arts? Does it come under sport? Is it not recognised yet as a sport? Then visit the Sport Wales website and you can filter through to the recognised sports list, or feel free to contact us at Sport Wales. But basically, we can only fund sports on that recognised sports list. There's loads and loads of sports on that list. Some that I'm even surprised at sometimes, realising that that's a sport, So it's worth taking a look at. But in short, all sports are, we fund all sports through this campaign, but they do need to be on the recognised sports list.
Amazing, thank you. A question from Hayley. Can we sign up to Crowdfunder UK before we are ready to launch a campaign to be able to get the knowledge to do our campaign? Absolutely. I recommend that you sign up to Crowdfunder UK. Anything that you start setting up will sit there in draft until you're ready to action anything. So by all means, I would really think about having a long planning stage. So even if you're not quite there in terms of needing to raise the money just yet, I would definitely go ahead and start slowly but surely setting up all of the back end things, do your planning and your learning. In terms of yourself, Mike, and the planning that you put into the actual campaign itself, we always say, if you're running like a 4 to 6 week campaign, try and have a similar amount of time planning. Did you find that you were able to put a good chunk of time into the planning, and did it pay off having all of that planning done?
Yeah, I think helping Hayley as well with her application there. We started our application quite early with a view to getting it out in January. And then we set up the pages, started to work it, fine-tune it. And then when we came through to January, we found that we weren't really ready to do it. So part of the scheme gives you a going live date. So although you've got your scheme set up, it doesn't actually go live until that date. And you can change that date literally until 2 or 3 days before your date. So I think we actually put it back maybe twice. We had it set in January and then thought, well, actually January after Christmas, not a great time to do this. And we put it back then to coincide with our winter training program. And one of our rewards was related to the winter training program with sessions. So that tied in nicely, and we put the date back for that. So yeah, you can change it, but the planning is key. Get it out there, get it done and fine tune it.
Amazing. Thanks, Mike. Just to follow on from that one. So Hayley's asked, is there a recommended time span for the campaign? From a crowdfunder standpoint, we would always say around 4 to 6 weeks. It is designed by nature to be quite a short fundraising exercise. It can be a fair amount of work. We understand that people have jobs and commitments and maybe are only volunteering for their clubs. So the amount of time that you will need to put into this is a fair amount. So you want it to be a short amount of time. And also in terms of engaging your community, you're going to get more engagement from people if it's only over a short amount of time. By having a really, really lengthy campaign, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll get more engagement and more donations. Simply for the fact that you launch a campaign, people get excited on your behalf, they want to get behind you, you've already done some planning and you've got some donations that are already promises and they're going to donate as soon as you go live. People will kind of tune out a little bit in the middle of your campaign. That's where you need to have a lot of things in your back pocket to be able to keep that momentum going, whether that's adding more rewards, you've got some great promotion coming up, you've got some events that you might be doing in the middle of your campaign. And then again, at the end, as they know the deadline is looming, people will get re-engaged and you'll see your donations rise again towards the end. So it's a bit of a U-shape, really. People get excited, it drops off a little bit and you need to combat that, and then it comes back up to the top again. So having a really long campaign can just increase the lull in the middle, and it can be quite hard to keep up that momentum. So short and sharp, try and have it over a couple of different paydays if possible. Try and encompass any events or things that are going on in the sporting calendar that you could utilize for some fundraising activity. Think quite creatively about when to do it. Obviously, it may depend on when you need that money. But just, short and sharp really is what you want to be doing. Okay, there's a question here for Phil from Julian. Can we progress a Crowdfunder Sport Wales campaign for ground improvements if the pitches we play on are council owned and run?
Good question. So in short, to raise money for pitch works or receive money for pitch works, then a club does need to have some ownership over that facility. So it either needs to be a freehold, so the club owns the facility outright, or a leasehold from the council. Just in addition to that question, so if a club is looking for drainage works on a pitch, then they're probably better looking at our other fund, the Be Active Wales Fund. So you can look at all the information on the Be Active Wales Fund on the Sport Wales website. If you were looking for capital work, so a new stand, a new dugout for this particular pitch, then Crowdfunder is the way to go. So just to kind of go back to one of the points I mentioned in my spiel earlier on field and off field is how we differentiate our two funds, I suppose. So the Be Active Wales Fund is anything on field, and then Crowdfunder is anything off field. So in short, then if it's council run, you need to have a leasehold on the pitch in order to receive funds for capital works.
Amazing, thank you so much. Okay, we've got probably time for one or two quick more questions. I'm just putting a few bits into the chat box as well, so you've got some information there. Okay, so do Sport Wales automatically pledge the percentage and then the balance is raised through crowdfunding? We did cover this when we talked about the milestones. It's a bit of both. Essentially, you need to crowdfund an element yourselves. Then you will see your Sport Wales pledge be essentially released onto your page. It's all sat there in a holding pen until you hit that milestone. And then you would need to carry on crowdfunding in order to secure that pledge along with all of the other money that you've raised. All of those milestones and the things that you would need to be able to kind of hit, if you like, to release that pledge will be detailed for you on approval for the fund itself. So Sport Wales will obviously contact you and let you know, we're going to pledge this amount of money and you need to have this many supporters and raise 25% of that initial target. Is there anything else you wanted to add on that one, Phil?
No, I think you kind of covered it there, to be honest. So I think in terms of the way that our pledge works, like you said, it's an automatic process once they've hit those conditions. I the one thing I'd probably just allude to on that point is, like you said earlier on, really, it's almost like when you start a crowdfunder page and you're raising money and then you get that impetus from our extra funding, Sport Wales goes onto the page. It's a really, really good time to then push on. And we've seen loads of examples of clubs, maybe get off to what they think maybe a slow start, but then once they hit those conditions, our pledge goes onto the page and they're flying from there on in. So I think it's a really good way of doing it, really, in terms of how that pledge automatically goes onto the page once the conditions have been hit.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really good motivator for you as project owners and for your supporters to get behind you. It just shows, what you can achieve. You've got this chunk of money on there and you just need to keep on pushing to that initial target for success. It's a really exciting time when it happens. I've put the direct email for Sport Wales into the chat there. We've done really well for time. We're just about to hit the 1 o'clock mark. So we're going to call it a day at that. We've answered some awesome questions. Thank you so much for those questions coming through. Just one more quick one for Phil. In terms of those projects receiving approvals, how long does it take when they put those applications through for you guys to give them a decision?
Yeah, thanks, Zoe. So basically, it's a really quick turnaround, or we aim to be a really quick turnaround. We say within 2 days, you'll get some communications from the Sport Wales team. What this tends to look like is if a page comes in and it's ready to go, they've got a brilliant video, pictures, rewards, and we think, right, this application, this page can start fundraising today, then we would look to pledge and get everything sorted for them within those 2 days. But what tends to happen is a club would maybe come to us with a page requiring maybe just a few additions or changes and amendments. So we will then advise them to look at a video, look at the rewards, look at the pictures, and we work with them within that process. So I suppose, once that page gets submitted to us, we'll look to get back to them inside 2 days. And then there could be that little bit of ongoing communication before decision is made. But it's a really customer service sort of approach that we take. To be honest, we don't really reject pages. As long as they're eligible, we'll work with them to get them to a point where they can be eligible to fundraise.
Amazing. That's really, really good to know. So super quick turnaround, lots of exciting engagement that you can have with your community, potentially a really exciting way to fundraise and access those funds for you. Thank you so much, Phil, for joining me today, and yourself, Mike, as well. Some really great inspiration there for those that have attended today. All that remains is for me to say thank you for joining us. I will bring up our next step slide, but thank you, gents, for joining me today and talking through your experiences and the fund itself. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, Zoe. Thanks, everybody, for joining.
Okay. So for everyone here today, just make note of these next steps. So go away, have a look at those projects that have come before you. Start thinking about creating those crowdfunding pages, or at least navigating that project setup and seeing what that looks like for you. Use that Learn platform that we've shared the link for. Check out any of those extra funds that you might be eligible for, and we are on hand to support you to success. So please do engage with all of our resources that we have. Have a great day and good luck with your crowdfunding campaigns.